how to deal with interview questions and conference Q&As. I wanted to cover this topic here on this channel because I feel that many STEM professionals, engineers, data scientists, developers struggle really with this part. So they, of course, are very much experts in what they do, but when they are asked questions to maybe explain some part of their work or to just sort of give other people an opportunity to understand what is it that they're doing, they struggle with that. So this usually happens, especially in job interviews. That's very, very common when you're asked, okay, but what did you do in your previous position? But how were you doing this and that? And that's when people sort of get stuck and they don't know how to answer. This is one setting. And the other setting in which this happens quite a lot are conferences or presentations in general that usually have a part of Q&A after the main talk where the public and the audience can ask some questions. And this is the part that tends to generate stress in general, but especially for STEM professionals. So how can we tackle this thing? First of all, I want to explain what people actually tend to do and why this doesn't work. So first of all, when we are asked, let's take the interview example. When we are asked, oh, but what did you do in your previous position? The automatic response is to give very, very technical and precise answers. And don't get me wrong, this is super, super useful. But more often than not, people who are listening to us are more likely to pay attention to how we are saying it than what we are actually saying, because chances are they don't really understand the specificities of the technical work that you did. So just to touch base and start answering, I would always suggest to give a general yet very relatable answer. What does this mean? This means that, for example, if you were working on, some cancer treatment, because you are a biologist, a scientist, you can say, in my research, we were testing this and this drug in order to fight cancer cells. So this is something very, very tangible that people can relate to, and they can sort of instantly, it paints a picture in their brains, in their head. And this is what we are aiming for. So that very first contact should always aim to touch base, as I said. It should always aim to really paint the picture into the person's mind. And in order to do so, for example, cancer or any disease that is unfortunately very common, it's something that we are very used to. But for example, if you're working in something more abstract, even more abstract, a good resource here is to provide examples. To give examples, so say something like, oh, I worked on this and this. You can imagine this as, a network of people connected on Facebook. So instantly try to give them something that can leave them at peace, because the general advice would be that the less they have to think, the better. Not because they are lazy, but because this is how we as humans function. We don't want gaps in our conclusions. We want everything to be filled out for us. So the less that we have to think, in this case, the less they have to think, the better. Now, what if we have a setting of a conference presentation and you are getting some questions from the audience? The thing is that with that situation, you usually don't know the expertise of the person who is asking the question. Maybe if you are giving a conference talk, you can more or less put them into some field. You can say, okay, if I'm on a conference with scientists, they probably know some basic things about science, about physics, or whatever it is that you're working in, but they are they're very likely not working in your specific field. So what do we do when we don't know what is their expertise? In that sense, in that situation, I would always go for the most basic explanation. So as I said before, the goal is to paint the picture in their mind. And you can do so instantly with your first answer. And if they are experts in the field, because people usually say, okay, but if they are super, super expert, I will look stupid. But that's not the case, because if they have some more specific question, they will ask again. And this is a great opportunity to also generate discussion and dialogue and really prove your expertise and how important your work is in the field. So in any case, the win-win situation would always be to start and aim for painting a vivid picture in their brain, something that is tangible, something that is easy to understand. And I always suggest my clients to have sort of a super short prepared pitch for that question. For example, what is it that you did in your previous job position? This is something everyone should have already prepared. Like, you should be able to explain in very plain words to anyone with any background and any expertise what is it that you were doing at your previous job, for example, if you're interviewing for a new position. Same goes for conferences, same goes for, really, if you extrapolate that, it really goes for every question that you have at conferences, at presentations, at progress report presentations, department meetings, and so on. Because the general rule is that people want to understand you, and it is our job to give them an opportunity to understand us, and we can only do so if we aim really for painting this picture in their brain, so they can really they don't need to fill the gaps in that explanation. We don't want to leave too much room for sub-questions and but why, but how, and so on. You can answer that afterwards and go into much more into detail of your specific work, but the first touch and the first contact should always be something general and something tangible. I hope you found this useful, and if you want to sort of pump that muscle and really train this skill of explaining your work, starting to feel comfortable when you're talking about your work, whether you're explaining it to colleagues, stakeholders, applying for some funding, for some new position, for a promotion, if you're aiming for that, you should really try to make sure that people understand the impact of your work. Not the details, not the background, but how does this work help them and how it matters to them. So if you want to work on that, this is exactly what I do in my coaching program. I help STEM professionals improve their communication skills in order for their work to get recognized, for them to get promotions or funding, whatever it is that they are aiming for right now. So if you feel nervous every time that you have to present your work, explain your work, or you don't really like that part of your job, but it is an essential part of your everyday life, I will leave a link down below where you can schedule a completely free discovery call with me, where we can talk and discuss about your specific issues, your specific challenges that you're facing right now in your STEM career communication-wise, and see if we are a good fit to work together. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you next time. Bye bye.